with Christmas around the corner, no parent wants an argument at the dinner table, do they? But are parents lazy for allowing their children to become fussy eaters?
TV chef Gino D'Acampo thinks they are. He blames parents for allowing their kids to be picky eaters.
But with up to 130 million Brussels sprouts thought to end up in landfill this Christmas period.
Who's counted
poor
them?
Brussels sprouts!
The poor person who's had to count all 130
Honestly,
million.
Unloved, unwanted, ending up in landfill. Should we be forcing our children to eat the festive staple?
Joining us now is Sean McAnuff, who co-founded a Caribbean-style cooking YouTube channel. He thinks children should be able to eat what they want. Good morning. And also celebrity chef Anthony Warrell-Thompson, who agrees with Gino. He thinks parents should take responsibility. Good morning to both of you. Anthony, you think that parents are to blame if they have fussy eating children?
I do, really. I mean, I'm old school. You know, when I was a kid, we had to eat what we were given. No waste. You know, the food was a little bit scarce in those days. I think, you know, there's a rule that if a child eats something for 21 times, they will get to like it. Think whoever enjoyed their first oyster, you know? And yet there are loads of people out there who love oysters now because they persisted at it. I think the thing is you've got to make, say, Brussels sprouts a bit of fun. You don't give them a little hard bullet, or you don't give them a mushed up Brussels sprouts. You've got to make them attractive by adding a bit of flavour. I've been playing games with...
Anthony, we'll come on to your recipes, because we had some great recipes already, and I'm sure Sean will have some good ones to share as well to make them interesting. It's more the point about parents being to blame if they've got fussy children and fussy eaters. I mean, what do we learn? Gino is particularly militant about this. He says if his kids, when they were little, if they hadn't finished their food in the evening, he would often make them eat it for breakfast as well. That's a little bit harsh, isn't it, these days? Don't we understand that there's a big difference between when you were growing up, Anthony, and you had to eat what was left on your plate, and there was a big thing then, and these days, and actually understanding that stopping when you're full and not clearing your plate, because I was forced to clear my plate as a child, and stopping when you're full rather than clearing your plate is a hugely important part of the discipline of eating as well.
It is. I mean, I would always encourage smaller portions, but what I would encourage is parents to actually sit down and eat with their kids, with their children, because so often they're given, say, supper at 6 o'clock, and then the kids will eat, the parents will eat at 8 o'clock, and the children quite naturally will say, hang on a minute, why are you getting something different? So at certain times of the week, you've got to sit down with your children and eat the same food and not put your prejudices into their minds, you know. So if you didn't like Brussels sprouts, sometimes you just got to pretend you do. This is lovely. I think, you know, my wife didn't like mushrooms, and unfortunately I wasn't around enough, so my kids don't like mushrooms. But I think you do get what your parents eat, you know. You do enjoy what your parents enjoy.
So actually it's parents up and down the country who should be eating the sprouts to set a good example. Sean, what's your approach on this then? You know, what do you think about whether children should be made to eat foods, made to eat Brussels sprouts?
Well, I'd have to definitely disagree with Anthony. I would never make my child be forced food, you know, or pressure them to eating food that they want to eat, because I feel like, you know, it's not good for them. You know, it could have long-term effects on their mental health, on how they'll be brought up as a child. You know, food's all about having fun, having choice, and being able to eat what you want to eat.
Yeah, trouble is, Sean, though, you know, if you give children the choice, don't they just go for things like the burger and chips, the sausage and chips? If they've actually got a choice in it, how do you get them to eat the bits that are healthy that they don't necessarily want to eat as their first choice?
That's where balance comes in. That's where education comes in. Teaching them about nutrition, teaching them about what's the best to eat. You know, obviously you can't just give them loads of sweets and chocolates. You have to teach them about food. And as parents, that's where we come in, and that's where like an important part of our role is.
How would you sell a Brussels sprout to a child then? If you're saying a nutritional value, it's sitting there on the plate, how would you say, eat this Brussels sprout?
I'll cook it in a different way, you know. A lot of people doesn't like Brussels sprouts because it's quite boring. I'll, you know, put a bit of flavour on it, put a bit of season the thing, roast it with honey. There's so much ways you can, you know, cook Brussels sprouts in a way that's enjoyable for children instead of giving them the boring way. So, you know, definitely give it a different way.
Basically what we're hearing...
a bit of honey.
with sprouts is you've got to disguise them. There's one here. Someone's got in touch. Ursula on Twitter. Years ago, I worked in a school kitchen. The cook had loads of sprouts left, so she put them on a pizza, hidden by cheese, and the kids didn't seem to mind.
That seems like a good idea. Interestingly, Anthony, there is some scientific research that said it's not necessarily about the children just turning their nose up because it's green, but actually it's a chemical reaction. The Journal of Agriculture and Food Chemistry, researchers found that parents and their children have similar levels of odours, such as they have the same microbiomes and bacteria in their mouth. So there's a reason why the children particularly react, because the saliva in their mouth reacts to the sort of the what it is in the Brussels sprout, which is why it's such a strong flavour for children. And as we know, that strong flavour is something that I've certainly come to terms with and love Brussels sprouts now, but I certainly wasn't a fan as a kid.
I think that you just hit it on the head. You've come to like Brussels sprouts now. I think you've got to persist at it. And it's not necessarily the child's favourite food. What I did when I was looking after our children, I had a little game. So I'm sure the social services wouldn't particularly like this, but I used to blindfold them and then give them different tastes, and they had to guess what it was. And if I, say, gave them some cabbage that was maybe with some nice butter and bacon or something like that, and they took the blindfold away, having said, oh, I love that, that's really nice, then you can never, a child can never say, I don't like cabbage again, you know, because you've got to trick them sometimes. Camouflage is a good way, and blackmail is a good way sometimes, where you say, no puds if you don't eat your main course, you know? So I think it's about having fun with your children, not making it a chore, and not making it something, oh, God, I don't want to have supper tonight. I'm not looking forward to supper tonight.
Sean, what do you make of the idea of bribery?
The old bribery technique.
I don't agree with bribery. I think, you know, it's about education and spending time with your children and making cooking and food a positive experience. You know, not forcing it down their throats. You know, I'm sure there's things Anthony didn't like when you were a kid. You know, it doesn't mean they won't like it when they're older. So it's all about just teaching them, going shopping with them, get them in the kitchen, get them cooking. That's what I do with my son. I get him cooking. There's things that he didn't like. He never used to like carrots, but I've got him involved. I've got him peeling. I've got him chopping. I've got him cooking in a different way. Now he loves carrots. So it's all about education, spending time with him, sitting around the table, as Anthony says. And, you know, food's an art, you know, as Anthony would know. He's a chef. So it's all about exploring different ways of cooking if they don't like it.
Is, yeah.
We're having some great recipes coming. Colin says sprouts with bacon lardons. A lot of people suggesting lardons. Richard, you had a good, what was yours? Pan-fried?
Some pancetta. Some chestnuts, maple syrup on there.
Some syrups and honey. Em on Twitter says sprouts with butter, maple syrup and walnuts. Run up to Christmas, we roast the sprouts with light olive oil. They love sprouts.
Nice. Campervan here on Twitter says mashed sprout sandwiches. Absolutely yummy. I'm not sure about that one.
So come on then, Anthony, what's your sprout recipe?
Well, you know, I mean, Sean's right. It's about getting the kids involved. Maybe help get them cooking. But I love the bacon and chestnut thing. But also, to start with, I used to shred the sprout, so it didn't look like a sprout. It looked like cabbage. And actually, you are getting a strong flavour from sprouts. But if you cook them properly, instead of the old days, we had it all mushed up and very heavily watered. And it was horrible, I agree. But the thing is enjoyment. It's about putting lovely flavours into it. You know, it can be a touch of maple syrup or honey. The kids do have sweet taste. But that's sort of bottling out a little bit in many respects. So I think, you know, maybe sprouts aren't for very young kids. As you get older, you learn to appreciate them.
Anthony, I'm slightly worried you're not going to be ready for Christmas in time, because you do know that your calendar behind you is currently saying the 8th.
No, well, you know, we're all digital nowadays, and this one you've actually got to do something to. So, I mean, I shall be having a word with my children instead.
What, the people that arrange the calendar?
It's all down to the preparation, as we've been discussing. It's great to get your thoughts, Sean and Auntie. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's have a look at what the poll says. We were looking at the poll earlier. Will you be making your kids eat their sprouts this year? It hasn't changed. Look, very, very proudly saying no. No one's being forced to eat sprouts.
But all those sprouts ending up in landfill.
Well, lots of you are going to be very excited about that. Elaine says, I'm not going to be forcing them to eat sprouts because I'm going to have them all. She loves them.
Oh, well, there we go. Try the new recipes. That'll go down a treat, I'm sure.
Sexy sprouts, as Dr. Lou says. That's all you need.